Night in the Woods follows May Borowski, a college dropout who returns to her hometown of Possum Springs, a rundown former mining town. She attempts to get things back to the way they were before she left and rekindle her relationship with the various people she left behind. But she soon finds that a lot has changed in her absence. As May struggles to sort things out with her own emotions and personal relationships, she also has to deal with the strange things happening to her and the dark being lurking in the woods. The game is almost completely character-driven, as we spend much of our time learning about May's relationships with her close circle of friends, her family, and the various other citizens of Possum Springs. This is where the game truly shines, with its assortment of interesting personalities that fill it. Upon May's return to town, she rejoins her old gang. B. Santello, who May was childhood friends with, Greg Lee, May's longtime friend and partner in crime, and Greg's boyfriend, Angus Delaney. The four are in a band together and gain a close bond through the series of strange and dangerous events that they experience together. May's immediate family consists of just her mom, and her dad, who she's arguably very close with, despite the typical family rough patches. We also get to meet her Aunt Molly, or as May calls her, Aunt Mollcobb. As for the many denizens of the town, there are far too many colorful characters for me to highlight in this short video. However, they each contribute to telling the story of May's background and the town itself. Over the course of the game, we learn a lot about May and exactly why she dropped out of college. May's inner dialogue, as well as the conversations she has with the other characters, are very realistic and honest. We also have the element of May's journal that she writes in many times throughout the game. Having the story from her perspective offers an interesting insight into May's psyche. Which leads me to the point that Night in the Woods does an excellent job of handling the subject of mental illness. It isn't romanticized for the sake of the story, and it's not all they talk about. It's just another facet to these already fleshed out characters. May ends up creating a lot of her own problems, as she doesn't really stop to think about what she's saying, and this comes across in the dialogue options, where you know what you, as the player, want to say to fix a situation, but the option just isn't presented. This, of course, creates uncomfortable situations that the player just has to deal with, much like May does. The story honestly surprised me with it being as complex as it is. When I first saw the screenshots and posts from the game, I thought it was just going to be a horror game, and to be fair, psychological horror is one of its tags on the Steam store. The game does have horror elements and some genuinely horrifying moments, but for the most part, it's an exploration platformer game. There's several places where you directly interact with the environment, such as when May breaks into places and shoplifts. This game also has rhythm game elements for when the band practices. You actually have to play the bass part to the songs that the gang plays together, which I found to be very difficult, especially with just 4 buttons on my keyboard. These portions are probably the most frustrating part of the game, which isn't too bad overall, but I would probably prefer if these sections were optional since they cause a lot of unnecessary stress despite not doing anything to change the plot. The art style of this game is interesting in the way that it juxtaposes a cutesy style against the darker themes of the game. The color palette varies wildly to fit the mood of each scene. We go between the brighter colors of the scenes within Possum Springs during the day, to much darker, more saturated colors during more emotional or eerie moments. May's own color palette changes completely during dream sequences to offer a sense of surrealism. The music perfectly accompanies the mood in each scene. Something that I noticed is that many of the tracks that focus around the town and May herself have a very present bass guitar. It's something that's familiar to May. In scenes such as the dream sequences, where May is in unfamiliar territory, there is a complete absence of the bass guitar. I don't know if this was intentional, but it's definitely something I picked up on. During the darker scenes, we have a droning sound that fills the tracks with fewer instruments accompanying. Overall, Night in the Woods is an incredible game. The story, the design, and the characters all do an excellent job of drawing in the player and getting them attached. You really want to know what happens at the end and where all these characters end up. Sure, there are things that this game could have done better. It's not perfect. Dream sequences can become disorienting and end up lasting longer than you would like them to. It takes a bit long for May to walk to all the places you want her to go during the day cycle. The bass playing is frustrating, and the asshole-ish dialogue options make you feel a little bad. But these are all just a few bad things compared to the many things that the game does do right. I highly recommend this game to anyone. It's available on Steam for just $20, and it's well worth the money. Thanks for watching!